Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final installment of Chainsaw Man Season 1. The last 6 weeks certainly flew by. I don't know about y'all, but they flew by like crazy. And I will be your host today. As always, I am joined by...
Hi guys, it's Emily. Excited to be here, excited to finish up talking about Chainsaw Man for now, and eagerly looking forward to what comes next. We've got some Demon Slayer coming up next week, which is super exciting, and hopefully we've got a Chainsaw Man movie before too much longer. So we'll be back before you know it with some more Denji and friends. But for now, let's talk about these last two really, really great episodes.
God, I love this episode. This episode, we're going to talk about episode 11 so much for so many reasons. It's so creepy and cool. So I'm very excited for this. Also looking forward to getting Zenitsu's backstory in a couple weeks. So there you go. Super excited for that. For those who are listening for the Demon Slayer audience.
We've got a lot of great things coming this season. I think people forget that the training arc is full of really good stuff. Anyway, we'll talk about that next week. We got to finish up our Chainsaw Man, and what a couple of episodes this was. Episode 11 starts with us meeting the future devil like we left off in the last one, and he seems rather light-hearted. Honestly, I was kind of surprised by the way he was talking to him. I thought he was going to be all mean and scary, and he was kind of a silly little dude. He has Aki insert his head into his gut. Side note, ew. But he did this so he could determine the contract and see what his future is. After a moment and a gasp, he says he wants to live in Aki's right eye. An interesting turn of events here.
This scene, I think, is the highlight of season 1. And I think for so many different reasons, the future devil is literally the most rambunctious kind of thing. And again, we have this conceptual devil that we know is super powerful because of how abstract fear can be in itself. So you have this really contradicted character in the sense of they're so lighthearted on certain things. And when he says so first off, in English, the future devil said, "You go out in the worst way possible," which does not hit as well as the Japanese version that says, "Aki hayakawa, you die a most terrible death." So also a very good piece there. I just loved this entire scene. I think it's so chilling and daunting to know that our character that we've come to love and know so much about them has this horrible thing waiting, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. It's just so tragic. It's really sad.
Yeah, I thought this scene was really interesting too. Like Hannah said, I was expecting this to be much more ominous, and yet in some ways, whenever things are kind of juxtaposed and it's this thing you expect to be scary and still kind of is, but it's portrayed as playful, is sometimes more interesting to me. For example, a horrific car crash scene, but they've got some fun 60s bebop music kind of thing going on. That's interesting to me. It's more interesting than if it was just the noises that you expect. So this playful future devil is, I think, a lot of fun, and yet it is still creepy. It definitely still feels ominous, but I think because it is taking everything so lightly, it's able to maintain that level of separation from whatever's going to happen to Aki, and it's just watching. It just is gonna sit and observe, which is kind of fun. We've definitely seen some characters kind of like this in other animes before that are I'm just gonna hang by and just watch whatever you do. A famous one that comes to mind for me is Ryuk in Death Note.
Yeah.
Kind of having an idea of what's gonna happen, but is I just want to observe from a distance because this is going to be interesting. As the audience, hearing that Aki's going to meet this terrible demise is heart-wrenching because we all love him and we don't want that for him. We also don't know when it's going to happen, but my thought is if this devil wants to live in his eyes to potentially see it happen from Aki's POV, then it might be sooner than we think. I don't think this devil would want to bother himself for too long. He's got other stuff to do, other futures to go see. For some reason, Aki has piqued his interest, and we're gonna have to watch along with him. But he sees a great sense of irony and humor, I think, in this. He thinks it's funny, whatever's gonna happen, and that makes me scared. Makes me speculate about what it might be. I don't know. I've not read the manga, but it's probably going to be something absolutely heartbreaking for us and for Aki.
Yeah, I'm definitely setting myself with the expectation that Aki's going to die during the show. I don't see any way where he can get out of the situation that he's in, which is kind of tough because, and we'll talk about this later, it seems like he's getting more and more like okay with doing things in life, which makes him more and more lovable. So it's like, they're just gonna really make him more and more lovable, and then he's gonna die this awful death. But yeah, and interestingly enough, as you mentioned, Emily, the possibility that he might have less than 2 years to live, I did notice that he put his head in there for a very short period of time before the future devil was like, oh, I don't know, it's anime, maybe I'm just living in, my world of cope, and I'm trying to come up with every reason in the book for him to survive. But definitely seems like this devil just wants to go along for the ride, and it wasn't that big of a anything that really Aki had to give up, compared to the other people, what they had to give up in order to contract with him. So I'm interested to see how much that develops in the future too. Anyway, we move on from that to see Power and Denji have leveled up, I guess, and Kishibe only wants to train them once a week. However, tomorrow they are doing a different kind of training, and they're gonna go try to take down Katana Man and the girl with the snake devil. I don't know if they've said her name at this point in the show. I think I know it now, but that's not really important. If they do fail this job, Power and Denji will be disposed of, and the special division disbanded. So I guess like we trained, and now it's ready. It's time to go.
Yeah, no pressure, right? Yeah, the stakes are definitely kind of high. The snakes are also high, if you will. Maybe, I don't know.
But
yeah, that's okay. We can we can cut that. I don't know. They've definitely like we've watched them get stronger. They've had to get quick on their feet, and Kishibe clearly knows what he's doing. I don't think that he would necessarily send them on this mission with the intent that they're gonna fail. But Katana Man is tricky. However, he has been defeated technically once. Aki was able to land some good blows, but he has similar abilities to Denji, which makes it an interesting match. Hopefully, we will see more progress this time. Also, Power didn't do much last time, so maybe Power contributing will be able to get an edge up on them, but it seems like it may be a fairly evenly matched fight unless the progress is more than what we've seen on screen.
Yeah, I liked kind of seeing them power up. It felt very nice to like finally see our characters at a point where we think they're ready for something. Now, the stakes of the mission, I mean, I think this is kind of something we knew coming into this scene is like, or I guess really on any mission, that if they don't do their job, they're to be disbanded. So I don't know as much if it's like being put into the hot water as it's been always been that way, and you're just reminded of what's coming. So I think they might have had an understanding of that. What did that mean for Aki though? If the special division's disbanded, I think that would be the biggest problem. Is that like he wouldn't probably be able to fight devils anymore. So I think that would be pretty sad if that happened.
yeah, I would agree. I feel like Power and Denji, they're already kind of in that where it's like, and I think Kishibe kind of mentions that it's like, oh, you'll be disposed of by Katana Man and this other person we're after. Not necessarily that public safety will do. It's just like, you either win and we'll be good, or you lose and you die, which is kind of how it is anyway. It's like go and win or lose and die. But they have other people on this division as well, so they have to think about that. Now, Kishibe and Makima then meet for drinks, and this conversation I had to watch a few times because I had to make sure that I understood it correctly, because it was a conversation and it only lasted a couple moments. So Kishibe admits, first of all, that he's getting attached to Power and Denji. He's blaming it on old age or whatever. But more importantly, he is also questioning Makima, saying that she knew the attack was coming, the earlier attack. And when she goes into her little spiel about it's all for humanity and blah, 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 this, Kishibe points at her and says, "You liar." This was quick, but a lot to unpack here.
I'm going to quote Emily on this one. Emily, I'm going to let you finish because this answer sounded like you wrote it. for like a press release when she was like, yes, and it's all for humanity. And I was like, this liar, I cannot believe this. So I just thought that she was just like playing such a like a political like standpoint on it and trying to really maneuver her way out of it. And she was like, you'll also note that I was attacked too, as like a cover, like because she knew she would survive somehow. So I think that this is just a wild scene because Makima just gets even more and more terrifying every time we see her on screen, and that's just like not fair for anyone.
It's definitely like the politically correct answer, but Kishibe is like not about the bullshit. He can read people pretty well, even though I think Makima is extremely hard to read. I think that he has like a grasp on her, and she has ulterior motives. Of course she does. Do we know exactly what those are just yet? Not really, but we know that Denji's gonna help her get there. Is it like maybe taking down the gun devil? Like, to an extent, I think that's part of it. I think that there's something beyond that, though. Is it that she wants to like replace that symbol of fear instead herself? She's pretty scary. I don't know, but it's definitely like not for humanity. If for some reason it was, it's very convenient that she's like the only person that was attacked that made it out alive, pretty much, except for Denji, who would have made it out anyway. But I don't know, but it's definitely not for humanity.
Yeah, it was a very politician answer that she said. And I agree when she said the whole, well, remember, I was attacked too. It made me think like she planted those people on the train almost. And it's almost getting to that point where I feel like not only did she know this attack was going to happen, but she's somewhat behind it. And that's just, again, me not being a manga reader. It's kind of fun to have this dynamic in the podcast for this, though, since like we talk about Demon Slayer a lot. We're all manga readers for that, so we know where it's going. But it's kind of fun to theorize on like what might happen, what could happen. Is she actually the big bad? Hold that thought, because I'm going to bring that up at the end of this episode, at end of our podcast today. So don't let me forget to bring that up again, because it's important. So 2 agents from Kyoto. I don't remember their names. Do either of you remember the names? Do they have names?
Yutato? I don't remember the other one.
Okay.
Jinbei. We'll call him Jinbei.
Not Jinbei. Monkey D. Luffy.
Tanjiro and Luffy.
Chad.
We'll go with Tom and Steve. So Tom and Steve are taking Aki back to headquarters. And Tom I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm laughing so hard at this joke. I think I'm so funny. Oh my gosh. Anyway, Tom is explaining to Aki that he pisses them off because Aki thinks he's an MC. But as they part, Tom tells Aki that he's rooting for him. Like, yeah, he pisses him off, but he's rooting for him, and he gives him a piece of advice that everyone is crazy and he should watch himself. Now, what do you think this whole thing entails?
I think this is just somebody being real with him, to be honest. Like, I don't know that this guy has like any ulterior motives. I think that he doesn't necessarily care one way or another exactly what happens to Aki, but is like, look, man, if you're gonna do this crazy shit, like, you do you. I'm not getting involved in this. If you value your life, I would advise that you do the same. But it's up to you. So I think that, you know, this is just like a side character that doesn't necessarily give a shit one way or another what's going to happen to Aki, for the sake of like sanity. Is like, I'm just going to put this out there. And he's probably right. Like, a lot of people have left public safety already for good reason, because the very few that were left after like the massacre happened have to like then reckon with themselves, like, is this worth it? Is this just like certain death? And even if devils were to take over the world, like, do I want to spend like the last of my time fighting with it, or do I just want to like go home and enjoy what time I have left? And if it was me, that would definitely be a question I'd have to think about. Not that I would be on this team in the first place, but it's almost like a question of sanity. And is Aki a little bit unhinged and insane? Probably. We've not seen that side of him too much, but I think that if he got the chance to go toe-to-toe with the Gun Devil, even if he wasn't gonna live by the end of it, like I think that we would see that crazy come out, and that's all that he's really hanging on for. And I think that he makes that pretty clear in this conversation too. Like he's like, look, it doesn't matter. If you want to watch and this is like entertaining for you, then like do whatever you want, but my life has like no meaning without this purpose. So I'm going to spend the rest of my time trying to do this, whatever you think of it. So makes sense. Not what I would prefer for him, but I think that this is just like a sane person, which are few and far between in this show, trying to impart a little bit of their take.
Yeah, I kind of liked this guy actually. I felt like he was a really nice like foil for us, just because he like really kind of opposed Aki in a lot of ways, just because he had a very similar position as well, because he talked about how him and his partner both were affected by the gun devil as well. So he's like, and you don't see me doing this, why are you doing it? And I think at first I kind of took it for the like you're better than me kind of thing, but towards the end, once he really said like, I like you, I think I agree with Emily here that it's just that this guy is like trying to give him the realest take there is, and maybe slap some sense into him. Maybe he can take a vacation. He'll meet Nanami in Malaysia.
Oh, all I know is pain. Not to steal Emily's line that she always says when we bring up Rengoku or Nanami.
Hey, I've got at least two. I've got two. All I know is pain, and I can never have what I want.
Yeah. Emily always picks the wrong favorite characters.
Or I pick the right ones. The good ones go first.
Hey.
And then they remain young and pure and beautiful forever.
Exactly. Isn't that why Akaza killed Rengoku in the first place? Didn't he tell? I literally just watched Mugen Train yesterday. It was not fun. It's never fun. He told him, he was like, die while you're still young and strong. I hate weak and old people. Anyway. Tangent. I'm going to admit, the whole time they were showing this scene of them in the car, I thought at any given time they were gonna, like, someone's gonna run into them or a devil was gonna jump onto the top of them. And then I thought as they drove away after Aki was dropped off that it was just gonna explode. I was just waiting for something horrible to happen. Kind of glad it didn't, but I agree. I think that this guy, what he had to say was interesting, because I think it was like a backhanded compliment. Like he was saying, like, you're pissing me off, but I'm rooting for you. But also, interestingly enough, he mentioned that both of them joined also because of the gun devil affecting their lives. But they seem to kind of still be like, well, yeah, but we're not going to go after him head first, because we know that someone that killed millions of people in one fell swoop might be a little bit above our pay grade. Our abilities, our pay grade at life. So it was an interesting scene. I definitely was waiting for something to happen, which it didn't, but that's what Chainsaw Man does to me. We move on to Makima meeting with the Yakuza. This conversation had a lot. So a lot went down. I just kind of want to talk over like what stood out to you the most, what you found interesting about it, because if we try and pick it apart, it's going to take way too long.
I actually really liked the sound design of this scene, because if you listen in the background, like in the most important parts, or in like what I think is the most important parts, is the like moment where you catch Makima's eyes in the shots, and like there's this like dubstep music in the background. It's like kind of it feels almost out of place, but then like when you think of like who you're looking at and like the amount of fear and like adrenaline that probably goes through your brain at that time, is probably accurate to dubstep. So I think that the sound design of this scene is really cool in that sense, because it really like elicits a response of fear out of the viewer.
Yeah, this scene was very eerie, obviously beautifully animated again, even if it's simple, and the sound design, like Brian said, was cool. But I, of course, was struck by like some of the imagery in this. You know, like I think a lot of shows that have like Yakuza characters shy away a little bit from what it means and like options to like fight back, if you will, to like get at them. And so being presented with a bag of human eyes is something that I had not seen before, nor was expecting the first time I watched this. And even watching it again, it's like, this is really disturbing. This is like, she's like, this is, I have something for you, a token from like all of your loved ones, your children, your wives, your partners, your friends, your family. Take a look. And it's like a bag of human eyes. And I'm like, I just can't even imagine what you're thinking in that moment. She's like, oh, don't worry, we have an expert that can reattach them, blah blah blah. And even if that was true, it's like, what interest does she have in helping Yakuza? Like it's already done. I don't think there's any possibility that those people are getting helped. And some of them were probably completely innocent. And it's like, if you're going to go toe to toe with like a criminal organization like the Yakuza, that's like what you have to do to get through to them. And I think just like shocking is the word. Shocking, upsetting, like extremely grotesque, but that's probably what stood with me the most.
Well, and she stooped to their level to get the information that she needed, because she asked, what did she ask for? The names of everyone who had a contract with the Gun Devil, but not just those in his group, but everyone.
Yep.
And then he was like, well, I can't do that because then I'm going to start a war. And she's like, well, do you want your loved ones to have their eyeballs back? I was like, oh,
and that she like
God.
preemptively did that, like before he said no, like she knew
like,
he was gonna say no.
She showed up with that bag, like she just carrying it around in her purse. Like, did she do that? Did she hire so? Anyway, surprisingly though, I mean, I think something that would definitely stand out to me was the guys like around her kind of started to threaten her, and she just looked at them, and what happened? Collapsed. And I was like, what is she up to? I want to know. Oh, it was so creepy and wild. Absolutely wild. But it is time to now take our season 1 villains down. We see that both have plans. We see the plans of Katana Man. We see that they've got Yakuza like with them, but we also see the plan with our team. So there's going to be zombies there from, and I don't know if they had mentioned this before. I didn't know that they were connected to the guy that Denji used to work for. So I was sitting there and I was like, oh, okay, his grandfather was the man that Denji killed. I wonder if that was a big reveal that just like I just casually noticed. But they're trying to get Denji's heart. So who seems to be the most prepared to come out on top?
I think they mentioned the thing about the grandfather when Katana Man first showed up in the restaurant when he was like talking. He's like, oh, and by the way, you killed my grandpa, so now I'm gonna kill you. Remember this guy? And he had like a picture.
Oh, and yeah, he had the picture. I just didn't remember who it was. Okay, I remember.
That's fair.
Now. Yeah,
but he was Yakuza, and so it makes sense that like this Katana guy is carrying on the will, and maybe was even like in the Yakuza before he gained this Katana ability. Like we don't know that much about him, but he's got a vendetta, and that makes him dangerous, but not impossible to defeat. I think that the girl seems scarier so far, and it's going to be interesting because Denji was already kind of like out of sorts during the last one, but he's going to be a little bit more right-sized this time, I think. So in theory, it should be a fairly evenly matched fight, but I would think Denji would have the upper hand because his blades are moving. Katana is similar, but older, so it's almost like the past fighting the future. And I think that's going to make for a really interesting fight. But in that regard, we'll have to see. I'm not sure. However, knowing that Makima is on the side of Denji in power and Aki, I feel like they immediately have the upper hand. Unless Gun Devil makes an appearance. We'll have to see. If that's the case, then we might be screwed, to be honest with you.
Of course, like us being the viewer, like of course we're gonna root for our protagonists here. It's very well prepared. It's like very well like set up. They have a clear understanding of what their job is going to be. So I think it's really set up for our heroes to win because it doesn't seem like there's too many obstacles. I mean, by this point, you've fought the Katana Devil twice now. You should have some sort of understanding of what he's going to do to you. So you should be able to learn from that. If only life was that easy, round 2 of the same thing and learning that same lesson. Don't you love it?
Yeah, I would definitely say I feel like our team has a leg up here because not only is it's kind of like bringing a knife to a gunfight. I feel like that's the saying when it comes down to Katana Man and Denji. But Denji and Power also just went through all this training. So, like, they're definitely stronger. And while we haven't really gotten to see how much stronger they are right now, I feel very trusting that they're going to be able to do this. But it's time to meet some new characters, as Kishibe is explaining. I guess, if I'm understanding correctly, these are all people that are members of the special division. We just haven't really met them yet. And they're all helping fight these zombies. So we meet the Shark Fiend, we meet the Violence Fiend, we meet the Spider Devil, and the Angel Devil. Who stood out to you the most?
Okay. The Violence Fiend's character design was so cool. I loved it. I love how Kishibe was giving out descriptors of the like fiends, and he's like, the Violence Fiend. Usually the fiend is weaker than the devil itself. And then I was like, my like jaw dropped, and I was like, that's bad. He's like, we have to restrain him with poison gas. And I was like, holy crap. And he's already going off. Like, could you imagine the actuality of him not having his mask on? Take his mask off. Mask on. Thank you, Future, for that reference.
Okay. So for me, I definitely think the Angel Devil stood out the most because it's just like contradictory in and of itself. It's like, what do you mean? And to me, like, that means that whatever we're going to see from them is really interesting. Also, this is probably the character I have gotten like some of the most spoilers about, so I'll just, throw that out there. But I also just think it's like so interesting anytime there's like some super androgynous character, which this character is, and I'm excited to see them in action. I like the descriptor of them as well, that's like they hold no malice or whatever towards humans, but you don't want to come in contact with it either because it means like certain death if you do. And I'm like, there's something very eerie. Like, I wonder what they're going to lean into for this character. Like, is it going to be kind of an angel in the biblical sense? Biblical sense? Because in the Old Testament, those angels are kind of scary. We're not necessarily always like harbingers of good fortune instead of like anger. So I wonder what this character is going to do, but just because of the contradictory nature, it stood out to me the most. That being said, I'm going to prime Hannah here, I think. I wonder which character stood out the most, and why was it? Because of their voice.
I was like sitting here, I'm like, I wonder how long it's gonna take for someone to say something, because it obviously the one who stood out the most for me is Shark Fiend, because I literally got to listen to Natsuki Hanai go, zombie, zombie. That's my answer.
Classic.
I mean, for real though. And I also find that fiend really interesting. I don't really have any like spoilers on him. I just know that a lot of people say that that's their favorite character. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what we get to see from him in the future, partially because of his voice, partially because I think someone that can kind of like turn into a half shark is going to be helpful to the team. Just start chomping at me. I don't know. Anyway, obviously he stood out the most, but I do want to give a shout out to the Spider Devil, since none of us mentioned it. Her design was really interesting, with like, it looked like a zipper in her face or something, and then she just like changed into a spider. Really, really creepy. If Jenna were watching Chainsaw Man, I 100% know that would be her favorite, probably, character. So I just wanted to give them a shout out. I know Jenna's not listening to this, but Jenna, if you decide to randomly listen to this episode, I was thinking of you. All right, so we got our time with these new characters. Really quick, just a quick introduction, but it is time for our group to split up. And immediately Aki finds himself confronted by multiple bodyguards. Suddenly, though, they all start having bloody noses and just collapse. And then it jumps to Makima walking out of that house that she was in, that she had met the Yakuza in, with a smile.
Well, she demanded all of their names. And while we didn't see everything that unfolded after the eyes were presented, what we have seen her do before is take a bunch of convicts and have them speak names. And, well, we all saw what happened after that. But this is interesting because what happens is not quite as extreme as multiple people exploding like crazy. At least not yet. However, you can't help but wonder if it's related. But why? Because the thing that's still unanswered, I believe at this point, is like, what happened to those convicts? Did we see them die? Or were they or let me start over. Let me stop making some noises. Did they die, or were they executed for taking part in whatever her ritual was? Like, were they a byproduct of that? Either way, I don't know that we ever found out, but I imagine that there would be absolutely no qualm with using Yakuza for a very similar ritual, because they would be on a similar, like, death row sentence should they be arrested and imprisoned by, like, the Japanese police. So is she using them for something less extreme? Was it the Yakuza members? Was it their families that she used? We don't know, and she's so damn scary. But I can't imagine that the two things are unrelated.
I mean, yeah, if you assume that someone in that room made a contract with a gun devil too, like that's an illegal contract. So, really, this situation, I believe that it was the people in the room and not just the family members that she used in order to take out the bodyguards in front of Aki. It's a win-win for her. Like, you get rid of the Yakuza, you clean up the street a little bit, and you get rid of some other people who are interfering with our devil hunting. While it's not necessarily her job, her interest is still public safety, quote unquote. So it makes it look like she's doing her job here, so that way she can kind of get away with it. So that's my opinion on that. I think it's really just Makima showing what she can really do.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what she did was extremely helpful to the cause of what we're cheering for as the audience. It was still painted as something very creepy, and it still makes me feel very nervous about what she's up to, because we still don't really know. Like, we see what she can do, we don't know really how that works, what, like, who she's contracted with or whatnot. So we keep not really peeling back onion layers. Maybe we're adding layers to the onion, making it more complicated. All right, so we're closing out episode 11 here. Aki moves on to face off against the girl with the snake devil, but she also has inherited the ghost devil. And it seems like Aki can't really shake his emotions and is actually quite easily taken down. We end the episode with his eyes rolling back as he loses consciousness due to the ghost devil strangling him. Oh no?
Arnar, Hanar. Oh my god.
Arnar!
Oki, he's getting strangled. Arnar.
Arnar.
I'm
Down
really
under.
sorry to anyone. Yeah, I'm really sorry to anyone down under. That's, oh my god, I don't think that helps saying down under, but it's fine. Yeah, so this is not good. I was like, damn, that ghost devil's really going after it, huh? And he was doing really good. I didn't understand why he didn't use the power of the future devil to begin with, let alone that fight scene nonetheless was still really breathtaking. Watching Aki just like bob and weave through the ghost devil's hands, like, it was really cool to see. Even though he's losing right now, it is still cool to watch how quickly he's able to move and really still stand a little bit on his own 2 feet.
This was rough to end the episode this way. Obviously, we know that this was like Himeno's contract, and so to see it alive, although it's a ghost devil, so I guess it makes sense that it would be able to come back even after it is, like, quote unquote killed, or like at least regenerate from the hand that we last saw. It makes sense that Aki would be overtaken by, like, a sense of grief, because all he's really known in the context that we have gotten to know him is grief. He's, like, lost literally everything. So this is pretty rough to watch, and I just hope that he'll be able to snap out of it. I don't know. Like, the guy was telling him, he's like, you're acting like the main character in a shonen anime, which was, like, a fun little nod. But now it's like, is he gonna need Denji or Power or somebody to come, like, wake him up and, like, snap him back into reality so that he can fight in that true shonen moment? We're gonna find out.
Yeah, I'll admit I wasn't nervous here, because the future devil just told him that his end is going to be, like, the absolute worst. Getting strangled sounds horrible, but I don't think there's something's gonna happen here, and he's not about to die right now. This isn't the end. I don't think the future devil would even remotely have any desire to see something like that happen. Boring. That's what I was thinking. Like, as bad as that sounds, like, yeah, he's fine. Something's gonna happen. But we'll move right into episode 12 because, kind of like you just mentioned, Emily, Aki does have his very own Shonen MC moment with his life flashing before his eyes. We see a flashback to him with Himeno once again, and we find out that he was actually underage when Himeno was offering the cigarette, and when he said, like, this will be my first and last cigarette, he then says, I'm underage or whatnot. So she takes it back and says that she will give it to him when he's ready to develop an addiction. And still having his Shonen MC moment, he is able to get out of that Ghost Devil's grip. He's able to unlock this like ability to wiggle out of there, whatnot. He slices like all of her hands, and then it offers him the cigarette with the words "Easy Revenge" on it. I have to admit, this was probably the first time I really felt emotional in the show.
This was pretty heart-wrenching, but also like kind of sweet in a dark way. This was like Himeno's like last attempt to like save him, I think. The contract that she made was like so powerful with this ghost devil, and the devils really shouldn't care that much. In theory, one way or another, it's like it's a contract, it's a business proposal, and in theory, like if this ghost is going to get taken down by Aki, it should be fighting for its own life, or at least serving its new master. But for some reason, this ghost devil has loyalty still to Himeno and is giving him this sign that like she's still there with him. She's still like trying to protect him even after death. And it definitely is very emotional. I don't know if heartwarming's the right word because the scene is still like really sad and it's still a fight, but there's something lovely about this love that she had for him, and that he's being made aware that he is still being protected even from the beyond. So I thought it was a really, really nice touch.
Yeah, this was really cool. Now I'm gonna be, I'll be the one to say it because I'm not afraid to say this. I didn't understand why "Easy Revenge" was written on the cigarette. It makes no sense to me. So if either of you could explain that to me, that would be nice.
I would like that as well. I especially was wondering why she wrote it in English as well.
I think that it's a little bit up for interpretation at this point. I maybe would want to read the manga to see a little bit more, but I feel like it probably has to do with this notion of like maybe like cheating death a little bit in a couple different ways. There's like the very like base level way in that they've discussed a million times like smoking this thing's going to kill you, it's going to rot your bones. And so like in theory, if Aki were to smoke enough of them, maybe that would just kill him before whatever this terrible end is that he's supposed to meet. So he's like cheating death in that way. In a more immediate sense, maybe Himeno had enough foresight somehow to know that this girl was going to want to like take over this contract with the ghost devil like after she was gone, and she understood what she was getting into. And so like in leaving this message with the ghost devil and knowing that Aki would be the one to like slay it officially, it's like easy revenge because the ghost devil's going to allow herself to be potentially taken down by Aki and then get revenge on this girl. Those are my thoughts. Not sure. Not sure. I don't know if we need an answer.
Is it the answer we need? Yes, that was the answer I needed. That's what I'll take for that interpretation. But going back to it, yeah, I think now knowing that information, that is really about like Himeno's love from beyond and being able to like kind of predict that she was able to beat giving him secrets is the easy way to get revenge. That makes sense. I like that.
It shows how much they loved each other, cared about each other, however you want to look at it, and it definitely made me a little like teary-eyed. Now, stating that the ghost devil doesn't have eyes, that it uses fear to see, and a new resolve, he walks up and tells Himeno that he will see her soon and beheads the ghost devil. And the girl with the snake devil just kind of stands there in complete shock. She tries to call for the snake, but Kobeni is already there with the knife. I'm like, what's with our like scared people being really, really fast? But Aki orders her not to kill her, and he asks Kobeni why she stayed with public safety, and she just states it's for the bonuses. What a wild scene.
Yeah, like this is bonkers. Like, could you imagine being her, like the girl with the snake devil, being like the knife against your neck, but also, I'm staying for the bonuses. Like this like timid little girl behind you with a knife. It's so funny. I mean, it's not it's not like funny, but it's like ironic in the sense of like, wow, this is the person who got me. Like, that's just too funny to me.
Low-key, she remains one of the most relatable characters in the show to me, though. Because she's like, I'm horrified, and I don't understand why you're not horrified. And he's like, well, why don't you just leave then? Because I need money. And if that ain't the story of my life.
If that isn't the story of everyone's life, let's be real. I stay at my job because I need the money.
Did I want to girl boss, gaslight, gatekeep? No. Do I have to do it just like Kobeni? Absolutely I do. So she remains entirely relatable, but I like her crazy side. She's a psycho bitch and we love her. Mostly.
Yeah, Kobeni is definitely super relatable. It was a very real answer. I don't know, like, why did Aki think to ask her that in that moment? Was it to try and like show the girl like what was going on? I didn't really put together if either one of you know. It felt so random. I was just like, okay, why is he like telling her not to kill him? Like, why did you stay? Like, what? Anyway, we'll move on. Power eating a zombie arm. I had the same reaction as Denji when she just went. I was like, nope, 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 nope. But the elevator doors open to a floor that they don't have to get off at. And there's a bunch of zombies there. Denji says that if they stay quiet, they won't notice, but Power's like, I want them to notice me, and walks out and shouts, I forget what she said, and she wants to take them all down. This is probably one of my favorite scenes in the entire season because I was laughing the whole time. She's like telling Denji to back her up and watch as she shows off her newly honed skills, and then it goes to Denji and the elevator doors just close and he continues to go up. And when she says like, watch me take all them down, Denji's not even there anymore. And I freaking love these two.
Fucking Power, man. I love how she's an idiot and that's fun and stuff, but like sometimes the idiots need to shut up, and this would have been one of those times. It's just like you could have just pressed the button to continue going, but she's like, no, and in the English version she was like, Denji, your back is mine to protect, or something like that, and it was like so funny. She's like doing a heroic deed when she didn't have to. Like, no one asked her to do that, and you guys didn't have to fight that fight. Like, it just didn't make sense. The math wasn't mathing for me.
She is something else, and honestly, I love her. I love Denji too, because sometimes he's extraordinarily real. She never is, but I kind of love how Delulu she is about everything. She's like gross. She's been gross this whole time. We have seen her like all nasty on the toilet. We're seeing her now and she's eating like literal decayed body arms, and she's like, everyone will tell the tale of my bravery. And he's like, no. Anyway, good luck with that. See ya. And she's like so invested in what she's doing that she doesn't even really notice that he's like not still there with her. But he's like, click, 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 like the elevator button.
The closed door, closed door, closed door, closed door.
He's like, no, 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 I'm gonna nope right out of here. And it's just funny. We really need some comic relief, like after some of these really dark moments, and she never fails to deliver. She's hysterical, and I love that. We don't have that many female characters like her in animes, and I think that it's like a breath of fresh air anytime she's on screen.
I love her and I love their dynamic. They're just so sibling coded. It's like, and in the best way too. I love watching them interact. It's so funny. But we move in because it is time for Chainsaw Man versus Katana Man. Interestingly enough though, Katana Man tells Denji that they're willing to turn themselves in if he like plays the game well, is like how he worded it, which was interesting. The conversation just very quickly turns into like the idea of humanity and if Denji is a bad person because he doesn't feel any remorse for the zombies that he killed. While Katana Man, he feels remorse every time, like even if it was like an accidental kill, like he can't. So Katana Man is like, you're the one with like who's like the least human of us because you've lost your humanity if you don't feel anything. And of course he also is very like, Denji killed his grandfather, so he's got that like desire for revenge. Katana Man says to Denji, let us kill you. And Denji just says, yada or nah. Maybe Denji truly is a bad person.
Okay, let me just start by saying I do think Denji's a bad person. It doesn't make him less interesting. It doesn't make him less real. If anything, it makes him more real because people kind of suck. He's a teenage boy. He kind of sucks. And, like, I think that if anything, that actually makes him more interesting as a character. He has to work a lot harder to maybe be good at some point, and he's just not there yet. It's real. I don't hate that for him necessarily. Is he the worst person in the show? Absolutely not. He's just not a great guy yet. But he's like 16. Everybody sucks when they're 16. So there's that. Do I think that he's a bad person for not letting Katana Man kill him? No. That has nothing to do with it. And this guy's fooling himself if he thinks that he's like losing that much sleep after being in the Yakuza anyway and like making deals with the gun devil. Like, no. This guy doesn't get to preach like moral superiority over Denji and like expect him to actually feel anything from it. And Denji's, I think, smart enough to know that. Or even if he's not, he's like, I didn't come all this way just to like let you get off the hook with this easy. So no, I don't think that this is why Denji's a bad person. And I don't think Katana Man actually really feels that much remorse. If he did, he wouldn't be doing what he's doing. So
No, I think a little bit contrary to like what Emily is saying, but still in a similar vein. I think Denji at heart is a good person. He just doesn't know how to be a good person in society and like be a good person for others yet. So I think he's still learning. However, even in my situation or in like my personal opinion, I don't think killing zombies is bad. They're already dead. They're called the living dead for a reason. No, there's mindless automatons. Like no. Like that's no mere moral superiority like conversations from you, sir. Especially about like that's not even a real person and he's not doing it in the sense of I need justice for something or like revenge. He's doing it literally because his life is on the line. So that's all I'm saying.
Well, and with that idea, I think Katana Man quite literally said, like, these people used to be humans. Don't you feel remorse when you kill them? And it's like, they're not human anymore, though. Like, you honestly are putting them out of their misery. And this is what I think. Yes, I think Denji has a lot to learn. I think deep down he is a good person. He's just trying to learn about the world around him and doesn't understand what that means yet. The people we're talking about here, Katana Man's grandfather, along with those zombies that he killed, they all killed him. Like it was quite literally self-defense. I don't know. Anyway, I'm getting heated for some reason. I don't know why. But it is, I think, a very complex thing with Denji, and it makes him a very interesting character. I will give it to like the writers and everything. Now, the fight that ensues, I really enjoyed this fight. It was probably my favorite fight of the entire season. But I rewatched this episode yesterday. I also rewatched Mugen Train yesterday for my annual rewatch of Demon Slayer before the season starts. But there was another fight because I'm also watching Bungo Stray Dogs for the first time. And literally the episodes that I watched yesterday, there was a fight on a train. Trains make for good battlefields.
You got to give it to it. It's great training grounds.
boo.
Oh Lord!
I can't believe I came up with
good.
that on the spot.
Wow.
He'll be here all week.
Okay.
Oh man.
Yeah, no, this was so cool watching this happen. It kind of gave you vibes of like the intro scene where Denji's like sliding down the front of the wall and stuff. Like that was so cool. So I feel like this is kind of like owing to the intro a little bit, and then looking at like the way Katana and Devil are moving, like I don't know how well it can be stated, but like Mappa does so well with these things. And then again, we have like this really cool dubstep track in the background. Like I love that these like fights are backed by like modern music. It's so cool to see like some contemporary stuff in there. Overall, this fight just really like tops the tier of the cake.
This fight is really well choreographed, and any fights on trains are always so iconic because of like the blends of different kinds of motion. There's like the motion of like this moving vessel that they're in, and then obviously whatever's happening, and usually the poor passersby that are just there already. And some of the best scenes ever have taken place on trains. Like Mugen Train, of course, is like pretty famous in the anime world, but I'm even going to take it a step outside of the anime world. And surprisingly, you would think that this is maybe not one of the things I would bring up, but I'm going to bring up Spider-Man 2. where he is saving everybody on the, like, that is like one of the most iconic fight scenes and like rescue sequences. And part of it's because like in that case, the bystanders like step up a little bit and it's like really heartwarming. This is kind of fun because it's like the opposite of that. I mean, like, what would you do if you saw like a guy that's literally made of chainsaws like drop through the ceiling of the train that you just happen to be on during like rush hour traffic? It's like, oh fuck. Like like it is just another day. Just another day. I get emails every single day and now I'm here. And that you're like, okay, chainsaw. And then there's like this guy that's also katanas. You're like, well, like, what are you even gonna do except like just resign to your fate at that point as like the passersby? But this is where Denji actually kind of steps up for a minute and he's like trying to kind of help this lady that's on the train. So like maybe as close to like a hero moment as he's gotten, aside from like saving power, but at the same time not sure that there is like a strict ulterior motive that it's because he wants to squeeze this random lady's boobs. You never know though. It could be there. That being said, like it's beautifully choreographed. It's definitely one of the more iconic fights in the show so far. And again, I think it kind of lends to that like modernity versus like older relics of the past kind of thing, both in that like he's part of public safety and this guy is part of the Yakuza, but also just like in the more literal sense of like the modern invention of the chainsaw versus the more like relic nature of a katana in Japan.
I think like as far as it being on a train goes, I think there's a couple reasons why. I can also think of a lot of movies outside of the anime world where fights happen on trains. Sherlock Holmes, they had a fight on a train. I think there was one in, I mean, there's kind of one in Harry Potter. Like they're not fighting, but they're trying to get on the train.
There's the Dementors.
There's the Dementors.
The worst part of prison was the Dementors.
Yeah, there's a lot of fights on trains. And I think as far as like media choosing that kind of backdrop, it does add stakes because there's innocent lives involved that can't just run away, you know? Like it makes it a bit more intense because it's like, how are these people gonna be saved? Are we gonna lose bystanders? Are they all gonna be okay? Are we gonna only lose a few, you know, whatnot? But I did love this fight scene. Like I said, it's probably my favorite one in the season. Real, again, shout out to the animators at Mappa for putting a lot of work into this and making it look so good. I like the background music, and I've liked that about Chainsaw Man the entire time. The music has always been very modern sounding, which is good because it's a very modern show. It's an extremely modern show, so it makes it work really well together. But it seems Katana Man has cornered Denji again. He keeps doing that really quick move, and Denji even is like, hey, stop taking that stance. Come on, man! He takes Denji's arms off. It seems kind of like Denji has finally, his good streak has ended. But then Denji uses what he learned from Kishibe and says, like, don't you know that, oh, how does he word it? I forget now. I didn't write it down. But, like, don't you know the beast, the prey is always going after the beast or whatnot? Correct me, please. I can't remember what it was.
Beast should never trust a hunter.
Yes, thank you. The beast should never trust the hunter. And he slashes him straight in half. Let's break down this fight scene a little bit more.
I love this. He used his head. And I'm just going to share a quick story that I think is funny. But I was admittedly like doing my little ADHD multitasking while I was watching some of this episode. And I was like kind of mindlessly looking back and forth between TikTok and here. And the guy that does the like, darling... like on the I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but he's like, play this for your Uber driver that's creeping you out. He's like, guess who just escaped the psych ward? And I'm like, why is this literally the same thing that's happening on the screen right now? Like, why is this literally Denji? And but it kind of is. He's like a crazy psycho freak and we love him, and it's like, it's so crazy that you wouldn't think that it would work, and it's like kind of stupid, and it's like literally headstrong, and yet here we are, and he like cut Katana Man in half because of this. It's kind of funny. Like, if you ask me, I thought this scene was kind of funny because he's like, all I need is my head. I'm crazy and I'm coming for you. And Katana Man's like, oh shit. But he doesn't even have time actually to even really be like that because of how fast this happens. and that like gross like sliding of like the body in half is just so foul, but very satisfying. We've been waiting several episodes for this to happen, and Denji has officially won, which is very gratifying. And we're happy to see it because that also means that he and Power are not going to be disposed of. So we are definitely off and running here.
Yeah, the scene was really awesome watching kind of the POV. It gave like Street Fighter vibes just because the like almost like two directional kind of paneling that they had for the like choreo of the scene. So I really liked that. It was a really like interesting way to show the attacks being done because it's like two head-on attacks. Usually you get like a POV of each side kind of looking back at Mugen Train, and the very end of the fight scene where they're both like powering up for their last hit against each other, you keep like flipping between their faces, whereas this is you're seeing both of them move at the same time. So just like the angling of the camera is really cool there. And proud of Denji for taking some advice for once. Let's just say Denji's, again, not the brightest crayon in the box, but he is learning, and that is making him, better in our eyes.
Is this like one of the first time he actually uses his head? I feel like he always just like runs in and is like, ah! And I feel like this time he actually was like, I'm gonna be somewhat smart. And that helped him win.
But literally use his head.
Literally. Because that's all he had to use. Oh man, but yes, very gratifying to see him take him down and win this fight. It was good to see that. So Katana Man wakes up all tied up by Denji, but Denji's like, nah, I don't feel as fulfilled as I thought I would, just turning you in. So Aki like gets there. By the way, did you catch the like hint of pride that was like on Aki's face when he just like walked up to Denji, who was just standing there, clearly had won? I felt like Aki was like, oh, like he did it. I'm proud of him. Anyway, Denji says they're going to have a contest. They're going to kick him in the balls and see who can get the loudest scream. Aki does his usual, like, Himeno wouldn't want that for us or for him. And he sits down and he's like, that would not be a good idea. That doesn't honor Himeno. And then he takes a look at the cigarette again and then decides he's in. I absolutely loved this moment.
Maybe this moment is Aki taking his easy revenge. There you go. Mic drop.
Mic drop.
Boom.
I thought it was hysterical. It's like Aki's been so mature this whole time. He's been the single dad of the group. We've made those jokes, and here he is finally acting his age for a minute and being like, you know what? I do want to kick this guy in the balls. Okay. And it's like a rare moment of humor from Aki, and it's really, really fun for us to watch him be like this.
Very, very enjoyable. I'll talk about it a little bit more in a moment, because spoiler alert, I have a reason to bring it up again. But Makima is now giving her report to the big dog. We see everyone is unscathed, and that Akane was her name, the woman with the snake devil. So we see that she had a deal with the gun devil and needed to retrieve Chainsaw's heart, but the snake devil took her out before they could question her, and that was part of the deal with the gun devil that she had. It wasn't a total dead end, however, because they did collect 1.4 kilograms of gun flesh, and Makima states that it has begun to move. So it seems that we are already now moving towards the gun devil.
Yeah, this is happening sooner than I anticipated that it would, but we've got to keep things moving, and it makes sense. Though I'm sure there will be roadblocks in the way that we will have to see in season 2 and in future installments of Chainsaw Man. Yet the question begs where. And that's literally what they're talking about. Like, where do you think it is? And so, I don't know. I kind of think they're going to have to go to America. I wouldn't be surprised. I think that there's like a lot of poignance in the fact that it originated there, and this author is like not being very discreet with this particular devil. So I wonder if they're gonna have to like go abroad, or like where they're gonna have to go to fight this devil. But either I have to pick up the manga or I have to wait to find out.
Because we're transitioning into a new arc, the arcs to come are bonkers. They're so good. If at this point it hasn't interested you to pick up the manga, I implore you to do so. I think it's really good. Just because you'll see so much more than you thought you could and you'll learn a lot much more than you thought you were gonna. So I think there's just so many things to like about what's coming. I definitely am excited for the Reze arc that we'll be having soon, shortly. But with the Gun Devil is tricky, right? Like, he's got, like the Steve and Tom guy said, he's got millions of bodies on his count. What are you going to do about it? What is Denji going to do about that? We don't know. Like, there's no way. So there's still a lot to be questioned here.
I do, and remember when I said stick a pin in something when I was talking about Makima earlier? This is going to be my wild theory. And again, Brian, I know you've read the manga, so try not to make a face when I say this, but my prediction, because I feel like the Gun Devil is not the main villain of this story. I feel like we're getting to the fight against him, even if it's not like the Reze arc, which is the one that's to come up next. I know that's a movie, so it's gonna be fairly short. Even if it's the arc after that, I still feel like it's probably not gonna be that short of a story. I could be wrong, but my thought process is the Gun Devil's not the main villain, and Makima is going to be the main villain, and we're going to have to fight her at the end, because I think there's something about, like, she wants to take down the Gun Devil, and I feel like it's more because she wants to be the strongest, and then she'll no longer have a desire to, like, well, I don't think she has a desire to protect humanity. I think that she believes Denji's going to get her there, and I think that as soon as the Gun Devil is done, she's going to be wanting to get rid of Denji because he's going to then be too strong. We'll see. That's my wild theory. We'll insert this clip whenever we get to the point in the story where that is answered. Whether that's already answered in the manga now or to come, we'll see. But that's my big theory yet to close out our discussion of the main parts of the episode. But let's talk about the after credit scenes, because there were a few. So first, Aki enjoys a smoke with the Easy Revenge cigarette. He finally lights it up. It was a really sweet moment with, like, Denji and Power asleep. I was like, oh, they're like a little happy family. But then we come full circle to the very beginning of the season. The very first scene, we see Denji's dream about a door that he cannot enter. And then finally, a new female character, which I can only assume is Reze. That's what I would expect. Which one of these scenes stood out to you the most? Which you think is most important? What did you think about them?
Yeah, I was going to go with the Aki scene with them as a family, just because it's so wholesome to see, and it's almost heartwarming. It's the closest you're going to get to heartwarming in the Dark Trio, is like the three of them like comfortably sleeping for a night saying, we're going to be okay today, like, and we'll see tomorrow. So I think that was just so cute and really, like, touching that they've come together so quickly as well. It's really nice to see.
I kind of liked seeing Aki come back to, like, this full circle moment. One of the most peaceful scenes in the entire show was just seeing him before the kids woke up out on his patio having the cigarette, but obviously there's like a greater weight to this particular cigarette that he's having outside. But I think it lends a little bit to that concept that I brought up earlier of easy revenge being all the things that he already did, but again, like, could he be challenging his fate a little bit in, like, these small everyday vices that he partakes in? So not sure. We're going to have to find out what's going to happen with Aki, but I liked this moment for him.
Yeah, I really liked it too. It kind of reminded me of that scene where he was like the house husband too. I think before either one of them even showed up. So it was kind of like he's able to relax now, even with them in the house, because they're growing closer and they're starting to understand how each other works. And I really liked that. But I'll call out probably Denji's dream. I don't know what that means. I don't know where that's going, but it clearly has meaning because it was at the very beginning of the season and at the very end. And this time we got a little bit more information about it. Denji was saying, like, he has this dream very recurring, but he always forgets about it. It's always the same. So I'm interested to see what exactly that means. I don't have any theories for it because it's like there's not much to go off of yet. I feel like that stood out to me just because I'm like, there's a lot of mystery wrapped up with that, and I like that. But that's it. Let's talk about our favorite moments of these last two episodes, and I'll go first. As I said earlier, I did say a little spoiler. I really enjoyed Aki deciding to take part in the contest. I think I've mentioned Aki is my favorite character, so to see him change from this, like, super serious and even have that moment of, like, I shouldn't do it. That's not what Himeno would want. Like, it's just immature, blah, blah, blah. And then him being like, you know what? I'll be immature for once. And just the way he did it too, he was just like rolling up his sleeves and saying, like, so what do I win, by the way, if I win this contest, if I make him scream louder? You can see the connection between him and Denji a little bit more too. Like, they're really, getting to know each other well. I loved everything about that scene, and it brought me just so much joy.
It's a really sweet moment. I guess not so much for Katana Man, but there are some really good moments between both of these episodes, so it's kind of hard to pick. Honestly, I love laughing in this show. Like, I know there's a lot of dark stuff going on, but there's a lot of really good comedy too, and I actually really loved Denji using his head to like slice this guy in half. It ended the fight really quickly, and there was just something that was like kind of hysterical about it that made me crack up. But I'll give a quick honorary mention to the Future Devil too, because I thought that was pretty cool.
My favorite was definitely the Future Devil. I love just seeing this goofy, giant, like mysterious thing laughing about. Also, kind of looping back to the intro, now we know why the Future Devil is just like dancing in the background as everyone else is like crying on the sidelines. It's fine.
Yeah, all good moments. Again, I always say this, but when a show has multiple moments where you're like, oh, these are all good, and it's hard to pick, it's a good story. But since this wraps up our Chainsaw Man series for now, let's talk about our favorite moments from the season overall.
This is tough because there's a lot of stuff in the show that makes you go, wow, that was good. But I'll expand upon my answer from today's episode because I think the meeting with the Future Devil is one of the best scenes. I kind of prefaced it in my answer in the very beginning, and I'll loop back to it now. But like, this scene is so interesting because you have this monster, and monsters are typically usually something you're supposed to be afraid of, right? And we've talked about in the ways in which like the music and the setting can affect your perception of an event as a viewer. And so now we're seeing this like giant monster who's very playful, who's almost like, he kind of reminds me of that one, the face stealer from Avatar The Last Airbender, the way he like almost toys with his victims a little bit. And so there's this like high stakes pressure here that's prefaced by like this buffer of like, no, we're just playing, I'm just about to read your future, it's fine. I remember because like that's what made me want to read the manga, is that line like, Aki Hayakawa, you die a most terrible death. Like, that's what caused me to pick up the manga, and I was like, I need to know what happens.
There's a lot to pick from because the show is really well done, and as we've said several times in all of these Chainsaw Man episodes that we've done, this really, I think, is Mappa at their absolute best. Between the pacing and the animation and just like the overall quality of the production and the story. Even if the story is kind of simple so far, I actually don't think it's that simple, personally. Is Denji's goal as the main character kind of simple right now? Sure. I do think it's going to evolve as he becomes less simple as well. But there's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts. And I think for me, it's I don't know if I even can pick a favorite moment because the whole show is really, really excellent. So I'll give instead the moment that I think is going to stick with me the most from the whole season. And it's got to be Makima getting back up on the train after being gunned down. And like that moment of horror and the use of silence in that scene was really remarkable and haunting. And it's, of everything in this season, I do think it's going to stick in my mind the most as maybe the scariest moment of the show, and the moment that for me solidified her as a real contender for that big bad at the end.
Definitely agree. I thought about counting that whole sequence as my favorite part, even though it was like really bad because people were just like being killed off really quickly. I still really enjoyed that scene and the style in which they did it. But I'm just gonna say and I know I guess I could have counted this as my favorite from the episode because this is all like pertaining to the episodes we watched at the end here. But the entire sequence of that final little battle, taking them down, just not just Denji versus Katana Man, but like Power doing her thing, Aki doing his thing, the introduction of the characters. I really, really enjoyed that entire sequence, and I like did not want to look away for even a moment when I was watching that entire thing. I think, like I said, I think those fight scenes were probably Mappa at its best. So, very much enjoyed that. All right. But that's all we have for Chainsaw Man, and that is it for that show for now. Very, very excited to see you all next week for Demon Slayer to be back on our screens. But don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're watching this on YouTube. Leave a comment and we might answer it in a future episode. Also, don't forget to like the video. If you're on Spotify podcasts or Apple podcasts or anywhere that you listen to podcasts, don't forget to download the episode, give us a 5-star rating, and respond to that Q&A, and we might answer it in a future episode. We're also on social media, Instagram and TikTok at Hashira Half Hour and X at Hashira Half. We'll see you all next week for Demon Slayer, but for now, our final Kon.
Cone.
Colm.